What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I woke up this morning around 6 a.m. Had this crazy dream, man, that the Pittsburgh Steelers drafted my favorite running back in the class, Kaleb Johnson, in the third round. Ain't that crazy, man? No, in all seriousness, what an awesome draft weekend this has been. Even without a second round pick for the Steelers, I was really happy with this selection. Day two is always my favorite. I think that some of that is just because, as an evaluator that is insanely interested just on the team building process, as you guys know, as subscribers to the channel, I think that Friday night is really where Super Bowl teams are truly built. It also, it doesn't hurt that just over the years, like doing this, being obsessed with the draft, this is also kind of where I've traditionally liked the Steelers picks a bit more than maybe their first round selection. So I'm a big fan of this pick. For all you draft sickos out there that have been following me for a while, this is a pairing, a prospect that I've really been interested in for quite some time. With Najee Harris gone, I thought that the Steelers should really be seeking two primary objectives, in adding a running back to the room. And, that was the ability to create explosive plays. And I think Kaleb Johnson checks that box. Look at last year. That's not necessarily a strength of Najee Harris necessarily. And then Jalen Warren, just dealing with the injuries, didn't really bring that to the table either. And then aside from that, I thought that they really needed to get a back in the room that was really comfortable running the concepts that the offense depended on the most. And that's outside zone, mid zone, running the ball from under center. And I really think that that's a glove-like fit for Kaleb Johnson. That's one of the reasons why I've talked about that pairing just so much. A lot will be made, I think, over the course of time about their decision to, pass on the quarterback class. I think in both scenarios, in the first and third round, I think that you can definitely make an argument this was the right call. And I'm a fan of like kind of their process. If they want to kick the can down to 2026, I completely understand it, just because of the strength of this quarterback class. And just some of the players that they've taken where I think they've gotten good value. In this case, great value. Johnson finished as the 38th overall player on my big board. They got him at 83, so that's awesome value in my opinion. He was my RB3 in this class. Someone, again, that I've just kind of fell in love with. I think he's extremely fun to watch. One of my favorite players in the entire class. There's just a gracefulness about his game that I really appreciate. I want to get into kind of my scouting notes on his just profile and everything. But before I do that, if you guys would just make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, make sure you turn on notifications for all that stuff. I'll have more content coming to you guys about the day three selections. They've got 4 picks today on Sunday that I'm really excited to, see who lands in the black and gold. But if you guys could do that for me, that helps support the channel, and I really appreciate it. But yeah, Kaleb Johnson, watching him run the ball, man, it's like poetry in motion. I mean, he's 6'1", 225 pounds, gliding style, insane production. 1,500 yards last year, 21 touchdowns in the fall. If you haven't watched Iowa's offense, I don't necessarily blame you, because outside of the running game, there's not really much to be said about it. But Iowa's offense under center, multi-tight end attack, one of the worst passing games in the entire country. So pretty reminiscent of some of the things that we could say about the Steelers offense at some time. So it is a fit in that regard. He saw an obnoxious amount of loaded boxes last year, a lot of 8-man boxes, heavy fronts, safeties rolling down, but he still produced at an elite level. 4.42 yards after contact per rush. That was the second best in the class, behind only Ashton Denty among running backs that had at least 200 carries per Pro Football Focus. Like I said, the outstanding size. He's got a chiseled frame, really absent of any bad weight. This dude is built like a Steelers running back. I know we had conversations about maybe them moving away from like the bigger back kind of archetype that they've been really in love with over the course of my lifetime. Johnson is a bigger back. He's well built. He's, proven that he can handle a large workload and a real workman-like attitude. And that's something that I think the Steelers probably gravitated towards, if I had to guess. He's a wide zone savant with best vision in the class for my money. Of all the backs that I watched, I thought he had the best eyes, perfectly treads the line between being patient and decisive. I think that most wide zone or zone rushing backs can effectively read the first level of the defense and find the right lane. But Johnson sees things like he's in the Matrix. He's able to set up blocks perfectly, causes linebackers headaches by steering them out of position. His nickname is Superman. You look at it up his Twitter handle. I think it's like KJ Superman, but this is his superpower, his ability to manipulate second level defenders and maximize the run blocking unit in front of him. Um, his feet are light, especially for his size. That's one thing I like about him. He runs through arm tackles without losing steam. He has extremely good contact balance to absorb hits, stay on his feet, and then keep going up the field. Guys just really bounce off of him. He has a good stiff arm. Once he gets to the second level, he could put guys in the dirt in that regard. He runs behind his pads with above average leg drive, I would say. For someone that doesn't have elite top gear, leaving, I feel like some evaluators maybe a little bit colder on him. Not myself, to be clear, are concerned about the top end speed, but he ripped off dozens of explosive runs this past year. You look at the explosive run metrics, he's near the top of all of them. In limited opportunities, he showed a propensity to catch the ball away from his frame, throws low to the ground, behind him, not hitting him in stride. I think the hands are actually soft, and there's probably more upside in that regard as well, maybe in the screen game. Don't necessarily think he's going to be somebody that you're going to split out from the formation and run routes. We haven't really seen that, but as a reliable check down option that you can dump the ball off to when a quarterback gets in trouble, he can absolutely do that for you, and I'm a firm believer in it. So just to go through, some of the negatives or concerns, which I think are, really match what a lot of people kind of say about Johnson. There's only like 33 reps in pass pro. That's what I had in my notes. I want to go back and double check those numbers, but only 33 reps in pass pro in 2024. That's very difficult. A lot of that stems from the fact that Iowa's offense they couldn't throw the ball. So there was really, if he wasn't in the game, it was kind of probably an obvious passing situation, third downs, things like that, where they probably just wanted to put a different back in. I would say the willingness is there. Some of the pickups that I showed in a film room that I did on the channel, had good football IQ, processing of like stunts and things like that. I would say the technique still needs work, is a work in progress. I think the overall temperament kind of needs to be kicked up another gear, in my opinion. I think backs on backers will really help with that. I think one of the advantages of having a guy like Jalen Warren and even Kenny Gainwell to that regard is like they kind of already had the pass protection stuff down, and it allows you to bring in maybe somebody who's not as further developed in that regard. Now, that being said, pass protection is like ultimately what keeps backs from getting on the field on all three downs in the NFL. But I'm confident that Johnson will be able to get there rather quickly without any issues. So he's got a natural upright running style. He kind of requires a runway to get rolling. Immediate backfield penetration can give him some issues. He's a bit high cut, so like those quick jump cuts, like right after he takes the ball, are kind of a chore for him. But if you're asking me a potential flaw in his game that could ultimately maybe prohibit him from reaching the type of success that I envision for him at the next level, I think that would be it. But having said that, the running back position is ultimately extremely dependent on the run blocking unit ahead of him, and that's just the reality of it. Even these special type of backs are unable to be maximized unless you put them behind a really strong offensive line. So does that make him offensive line dependent? I wouldn't necessarily say that, because I do think that he maximizes the creases that the offensive line creates for him, and I do think he creates creases for himself and those yards after contact with his vision, with his contact balance, and things like that. Just some of the other stuff that I would think about. He can be an effective gap scheme runner because I think the patience, the size, the ability to get skinny through the hole, but he doesn't have a ton of experience in that regard. I mean, like I said, the Iowa offense, there's no smoke and mirrors to it. They're running wide zone with him under center on early downs, and they're only going to throw the ball when they absolutely have to, and they'll run play action off of that. So he just doesn't have a wide variety of, tape doing other things than wide zone, to be honest with you. But this is really an impact player, I feel like, in a wide zone, mid zone blocking scheme right away. The comparison that I gave him, which is definitely for you, those of you guys that have followed me for a long time, you guys know that I don't do a ton of pro comps. I do understand why they're helpful, because I think that it paints a good picture for like fans of the game or fans of like a specific team on what the player could ultimately become. This is more of a stylistic comp. I'm not saying he's going to reach these heights, but the comparison that I gave him early in the process was Arian Foster. For those of you guys that have watched the NFL for a long time, Foster was a really unheralded draft prospect. I actually think he might have went undrafted out of Tennessee. Was a guy that a lot of evaluators kind of knocked because they didn't have the top end speed, wasn't a guy who was like super flashy and things like that. But then they put him in that kind of that old school Shanahan style offense where it's one cut go, press and puncture type of offense under center, under Kubiak. And he just exploded. He had some health issues that ultimately ended up derailing his career. But multiple, I would say, I don't know off the top of my head, but multiple Pro Bowl caliber seasons where he was over 1,000 yards. I still remember what he did to the Steelers when they played. I want to say it was around like 2011. He gave them all type of fits, but that's kind of the style of back that I think that Johnson can be. He's going to win with, the vision, the contact balance, and stuff like that. So he runs with great tempo, pacing, things like that. But I think the Steelers are going to really love this kid, man. It really, I truly believe that this kid's going to have multiple 1,000-yard seasons in the black and gold. I know that they've got Jalen Warren right now, and he's going to be penciled in as the RB1. I'm excited about him getting his chance to shine and things like that. But I think that Kaleb Johnson is, really capable of being the engine to an offense out of the backfield. And I'm excited about having him here, in case you can't tell. So lots of untapped potential. As always, I really appreciate your all's continued support. If you're really interested in maybe some further thoughts on Kaleb Johnson, I did a lengthy film room on the channel for channel members. I think it was back in maybe January or February. So I will put that link in the description for you guys, and maybe I'll try to drop it in the comments if it'll let me there as well. But it's a really if you are really interested in that type of stuff, I'm going to try to put a film room of Derek Harmon up in the coming days, and then I'll start working kind of on gathering clips and everything of the day 3 guys, as we move through the week. But I will be back later on today. I'll probably wait until tonight, after they make all of their selections, to kind of do a full recap, and we'll do the same thing we always do with the scouting report stuff and kind of give you my thoughts on the players. And if you guys have any questions or comments about any of this type of stuff, please let me know, and I'll try to respond to as many as I can. But I really appreciate the continued support throughout draft weekend, and I will check you guys soon. Peace and love.